You ever look at a dashboard that's just jam-packed with numbers and think, are we actually winning here, or are we just counting things? We have all seen those key performance indicators, KPIs, that look fantastic on a slide, but don't actually do anything to move the needle. Today, we are going to break down exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how to build a KPI machine that actually works.
So what is the real problem here? Why do so many of these carefully chosen KPIs just fall flat? They don't inspire anyone, they create confusion, and sometimes, in the worst cases, they actually make people do the wrong things. It's a huge headache for teams everywhere, but the answer? Well, it's often a lot simpler than you'd think.
And here it is. This is the big shift in thinking we all need to make. The problem is hardly ever the metric itself, whether it's customer satisfaction or revenue per user. The failure is almost always in the mechanics. That kind of hidden machinery of processes and communication that's supposed to bring the metric to life. You fix the mechanics, and I promise you the metric will start to drive real results.
So, to build our performance machine, we've got to start with the blueprint. You wouldn't build a house without a super detailed plan, right? So why on earth would you build a core business metric without one? Getting the documentation down is the absolute foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. Now, the main tool for this blueprint is what we call the KPI Documentation form. The keyword here is standardized. This is not just a random collection of notes in some shared document. Nope, it is a formal, structured document that answers every single critical question you can think of. How is this calculated? Exactly where does the data come from? Who owns it? And, probably the most important question of all, why does this even matter to our strategy?
So why go through all this effort? Well, because a solid blueprint like this does some pretty critical things. It becomes the single source of truth, which finally puts an end to those endless debates about what a metric really means. It makes sure calculations are consistent across different teams. It makes bringing new people on board so much easier. And crucially, it creates this clear, undeniable link between the number you see on the screen and the company's biggest goals. And the process for creating one? It's actually really logical. You pick the metric, you do your homework and gather all the details, you fill out that standard form, you get the final sign-off from whoever owns the data, and then, and this part is key, you submit it to a central place for everyone to find. Okay, let's be super clear here. This is not about creating more paperwork or bureaucracy. It's actually the exact opposite. Good documentation is the cure for ambiguity. It's the mechanism that turns a bunch of people with slightly different ideas into one single aligned team, all pulling in the very same direction.
So you've made the perfect blueprint for one KPI. That's a fantastic start. But what about the other 50 you're tracking? This is where the second major piece of the machine comes in, the KPI library. Just think of it as your company's single, central, unarguable source of truth for every single metric you track. Now, this library is so much more than just a folder where documents go to be forgotten. It's an active system. It's what makes sure that the definition of an active user is exactly the same for the marketing team and the product team. It stops different departments from accidentally reinventing the wheel and creating like 3 slightly different versions of the same metric. It literally becomes the official dictionary for your company's data. Honestly, this is the perfect way to picture it. If your company is a high-performance machine, then the KPI library is the official quality-controlled parts inventory. Every gauge, every dial, every sensor you use to run the business is in there. Each part is meticulously cataloged, defined, and ready for anyone in the company to use correctly.
Okay, so our machine now has all these well-defined parts, and they're all neatly organized in a library. But a part without a purpose is, it's just a piece of metal, right? To make our KPIs really work, we have to give them a job to do. We have to give them a target. Broadly speaking, you've got 2 ways to do this. The historical approach looks inward, and it says, hey, let's just be 10% better than we were last year. It's reliable for sure, but it can be a little safe. Then you have the benchmarking approach, which looks outward. It says the best in our industry is at 95% satisfaction, so that's our new goal. That's ambitious, but you better be darn sure your data is comparable. Honestly, the best approach usually blends a little bit of both.
Now, setting a target should never, ever be a guess. It's a deliberate, analytical process. It all starts with deeply understanding the documented KPI you pulled from the library. Then, you analyze your own history, you benchmark against the competition if you can, and only then do you actually set the target. But you can't forget the most critical step of all: communicating the why behind that number to get the whole team on board. And this right here, this is the whole transformation we're aiming for. A bar chart by itself is just information. But that exact same chart with a clear, well thought out target right next to it, that's not just data anymore. That's a destination on a map. It's the hill your team knows together that they need to take.
So, let's bring this all together now. By focusing on the mechanics instead of just chasing the metric, we've built a system. We've actually constructed a real performance machine that can transform a simple number into a genuine North Star for your entire team.
It all really comes down to these three pillars. First, the blueprint. That's your rigorous documentation, and it provides total clarity. Second, the library, your central repository, which drives consistency across the board. And third, the target, your clear goal, which gives everyone direction. You get these three mechanical pieces right, and your KPIs will finally start to deliver real results. So, I'll just leave you with this one question to take back to your team. Think about your most important KPI. Is it actually backed up by a solid blueprint? Does it live in a central library where everyone can find it? Is it aimed at a clear, well-communicated target? Or is it just a number on a dashboard? Because the difference between a simple number and a true North Star, well, that's everything.